Hey everyone, welcome to Off the Mat, a podcast about two women's experience in Jiu-Jitsu and how that translates into our lives off the mat. I'm Justine, a bit of a renegade, outdoor enthusiast, and a white belt in Jiu-Jitsu.
And I'm Karina, a full-time student, creative artist, and also a white belt on my way to becoming a black belt.
Alright, hey guys. This is our first ever podcast episode. And so,
we're going to be talking a bit about who we are, why we got started with Jiu-Jitsu, and about our first class, which is actually where me and Karina met for the first time.
Yep, actually here, located in Gainesville, Florida.
Yeah, never expected to live here at
Right.
all. I'm a native from Chicago and have traveled a lot throughout my life. Ended up here for a job and quit that job, and now I work... I think that happens in life sometimes.
Yeah.
Quit that job and now I work remotely. And I think when I came to Florida, I was not expecting to find a community like the one that I found in training with Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, I can say that I honestly never pictured myself doing this, and I feel like that's such a cliche. And I've told you before, I'm so into the cliches now because they actually make sense, you know? But, it's something that I feel like is still underground a bit. Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I would say not most people know about Jiu-Jitsu, you know?
Or martial arts in general.
Yeah, right. And especially it being a male-dominated field. Mm-hmm. We were females coming in on our first class, ended up meeting there the first day,
yep.
And kind of just getting thrown into it. So how would you say your first class went?
It was a disaster. I honestly, I think walking into it, I had no idea what to expect. All I had gotten was a note saying to wear athletic clothing.
Yep.
But I still had all my jewelry in.
Me
I
too.
had socks and running shoes on. And the people were very nice. The gym that we both train at here in Florida has a really good vibe. I think that's very welcoming. But it was still very intimidating. They tell you to come over into this little area and they give you a gi, which I had no idea what this was.
Still barely even know how to spell it to this day.
I mean, it's 2 letters. I think that one should be pretty easy.
It's like this big white cloth garment that's just especially for us, it's just oversized. I mean, the sleeves were slipping past our fingertips. We had these high water, jogger white pants on. You tie them with this string.
No, even the knot, they have to do it for you.
Oh, with your belt.
The belt.
Mm-hmm.
It's a certain way to tie that knot.
Yeah, I remember for the first couple of classes even having to have my belt tied. But yes, they give you this package of here's your gear.
But it's the gear that they give you is what they use for people who come in. So it's used gear.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
all mismatched.
It's A, B, C.
Yeah, it has patches in it. And it was clean. I'll give them that. It was a clean gi that we got. And then they just say, okay, go over onto the mat and class will start. And I think I saw you with another girl at that time, and I came and sat next to you guys because I was like, I need to be by women. It's very intimidating.
It is.
Because the majority of the people in the class were men, and some of them were giant. I mean, both Karina and I were about 130 pounds, I would say, yeah. And the people in the class were easily over 200, the majority of them.
Agreed. And being male as well.
Yeah.
And being higher ranked too, we saw blue belt. I mean, at the time we didn't know it. We were just, colors. But,
brown belts.
Yeah, since the first day.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that was kind of my experience first walking in. I felt a lot of anxiety, a lot of trepidation, and I wasn't really sure what to expect at all.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the car ride there. I couldn't even figure out what songs to put. I was like, should I put the windows down? Whatever it is to make me feel better. You know, your heart is just beating out of your chest because this is truly something where you're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and you know what you're getting into. You know you're going to walk into somewhere that you don't know what it looks like, to be honest, except for the Google images. You know most likely there's going to be few females. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be put in this weird outfit, you know? And
I didn't know about the outfit. To be honest, I had no clue about the outfit until I was there.
I can't remember if I was like, oh, this is weird, or because so I have watched UFC a bit. So the way that I got into jiu-jitsu was actually watching UFC with my boyfriend. Just watching fights, he had it on one day, and I was like, yeah, keep it on, you know, like, I'll watch it, and I ended up really liking it. And I started with kickboxing, and so back at home, I bought some gloves, bought some tape, and started with the boxing, yep. And that was really fun. It's a great cardio workout, and you feel like a badass, like, punch in the bag, but they have good music, whatever. But then, you keep watching UFC, and you understand what they're doing in that ring. It's not just a whole mishmash of whatever. You're like, oh, they're doing this move, they're throwing a jab, they're about to take them down in a jiu-jitsu move. And so I'm pretty sure it was one night we were watching, and I was like, I have to experience jiu-jitsu. It just seems like something that's gotta happen. And so that's what kind of led me here. I moved here for school. I'm in my 3rd year at the University of Florida. Woo, go Gators.
Good job.
And yeah, so I just found a gym out here, and that's where we kind of have started our journey.
Yeah.
So we are complete white belts.
Not even a stripe yet.
Not a stripe just yet.
Soon, hopefully.
Yes, on the way.
Yeah. I think for me it was very different. So I've always been intimidated by kind of the TV fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of blood, as I told you. And there seems to be like a lot of it, at least in the little that I've seen. And I also grew up in a family where my parents had 2 very strange rules. One was that we weren't allowed to do cheerleading for the girls and wrestling for the guys. Interesting
very normal
phenomenon that wrestling wasn't considered for women, but again, that's kind of the nature of martial arts. It's generally been a male-dominated sport. So jiu-jitsu and martial arts never even factored into any equation growing up, even though I was quite athletic and engaged in a variety of sports all the way
And I would say
through high
the
school.
same. Like, I never was introduced to martial arts as I was younger. It was not even really, not that it wasn't an option, but we did dance when we were younger. I did jazz and ballet for 10 years, and for some reason after doing it for 10 to 12 years, I was just like, I don't like this anymore. I think it's because I wasn't competing. And so we were just doing
very competitive.
Right. So, but even then, it wasn't like, oh, like, let's go put you in jiu-jitsu, let's go put you in kickboxing. It was only until I started going to college and saw UFC, and I was like, I kind of want to do kickboxing. That seems cool. Like, I could throw on a glove or two, but it was never introduced.
So what would you say helped you? Because I imagine that, part of the reason we wanted to start this podcast is because we think it's important for more women to have access to jiu-jitsu and martial arts in general, and to feel encouraged and supported in that journey. Because even in our gym, which is pretty accommodating for women, I would say, very open and friendly towards women, we're definitely still in a very severe minority. So
That's a good way to put it.
So I'm wondering what got you to kind of overcome that hurdle of going to that first class. Because I know for me it took quite a long time. Before I moved to Florida, I had thought about going, but then once I got here, I kept delaying it and postponing it, really just out of fear.
Right.
I felt like I was plunging into this unknown world that would challenge me, but I also knew that it was a male-dominated sport, and I was anxious about that going into it.
I would say I've felt probably one of the higher ends of anxiety that I've ever felt was before going into that class. I mean, it's just something that, it just happens. It's something completely brand new, so you just have to expect, high anxiety. I think for me, I really enjoy, like, proving myself, showing myself, working hard. Like, I'm the type of girl, put the elbow grease in, like, even if it's in your neck, like, it still counts, So once I got past the initial fear, which I think in anything that you do, you have to get past the initial fear, because that period of time where you're anxious doesn't define what the actual event that you're doing is, Right. So once you get into it, they said, I think it was 90 days. Or was it 60 or 90?
That's what our coach said, He said after 90 days.
Yeah, give it 90 days and then see how you feel. So I was committed to that. And I can't even tell you where the 90-day mark was because it's just been full throttle all the way in.
Right.
So I just feel like each time we went to class, in the beginning, it was tough, but you do see improvement. You do start to begin to know what you're doing. It's just like learning a language. Like, you open up a book of Mandarin, you're not going to know anything in there unless you speak, you know?
True.
But once you do a couple practices, you know, and then you're like, hey, I know a sentence. I can say 2 sentences, whatever it is. So I think that's what motivates me to kind of get rid of the fear and to kind of keep going is just the improvement. You know, it's I've kind of felt the same way in the gym. Before I used to kind of like lackadaisical be in the gym, you know, do a little bit of cardio. I feel like most girls kind of do a little bit of cardio, maybe pick up a weight or 2, but when I started actually lifting weights, deadlifts, you know, actually bench pressing before, I was really scared to go into the weight room because it was mostly guys. And they were picking up heavy weights and crowding whatever areas. It's tough. It's tough to walk in there and, you know, put your chest up like you're the girl. But after I started doing that and just, you can see it, your progressive overload is what they call it with weights. But, okay, this week I was able to pick up 5 pounds. 3 weeks later it's 10 pounds. And that improvement is something that keeps me going forward.
So you kind of already anticipated that even when you first walked into the doors of our gym?
I would say that I didn't close the door on improvement. I didn't say, oh, I'm never going to get good at this, or this is too hard, because it is hard.
Well, it was hard. I mean, I vividly remember the warm-ups. I think the technical term is forward rolls and backward rolls. And
break fall.
They're basically like somersaults. And I hadn't done a somersault since I was probably 10 years old, or maybe in college when I was like drunk on a hill.
And you line up, everybody lines up, they know what they're doing. They're like, okay, forward rolls,
and
go.
everyone looks like a fucking gymnast. And then here I am, you know, trying to be like, okay, arm through, legs over.
Rolling over the wrong shoulder.
Yeah, I think even in that very first class, one of the lessons that I've learned over and over again, just in the few months that I've been training, is that Jiu-Jitsu really teaches you humility.
You have mentioned that.
You have to be humble to walk into that gym and to actually learn, because you're going to end up flat on your ass over and over again. And even from the get-go, just with those warm-ups at the beginning, we had to, or at least I had to accept, like, I didn't know what to do, and I was obviously not good at it. And it took a number of weeks until I felt confident doing those warm-ups without kind of asking if I was doing the mechanics of it correctly.
Right. I felt the same way when they told us to roll. So they tell you to roll normally, you know, at some point in the class, and that means you pair up with somebody else, and ultimately you kind of just wrestle with each other. So
it's like a fight.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you wrestle, you have resistance, you're trying to get out of positions. But in this time, in the first class, we didn't know any positions. We didn't even know what a roll looked like. We had no idea. So they're like, okay, go. What am I doing? What am I doing? Because I'm not sure. And then each time you go in there not knowing, and knowing that you don't know. And that's where that act of humility comes in, is like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I have to put myself in this situation where maybe I'm not going to be the best, and I'm going to look probably like a fool. You know, I'm going to get tapped out. I'm going to get choked. All of the things, but at the end of it, once you keep going and going and going. But honestly, I feel like the humility part doesn't end, even if you're a black belt.
I mean, I can't speak for black belts, but at least not yet. At least, in my experience, it hasn't plateaued. I feel like every time I go in, there are different levels of being humbled on the mat, and I think it's important in the world we live in to be able to experience being knocked down, losing, not knowing what to do, and then being able to pick yourself up and continue on in those circumstances. And, I think that's one of the really empowering aspects of Jiu-Jitsu, and perhaps martial arts in general, is that it teaches you that you can succeed even after failing.
You get right back up.
And how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, how to be confident of your own strengths and your own capability. And I mean, there are countless times in class where I remember when we first did live takedowns. And you
King of the mat?
King of the mat.
Oh, man.
You literally walk out and know you're going to be on your ass in just a couple of seconds. And
like,
not just
literally,
gently, but like throwing over
yeah, and that's not an
or,
exaggeration. Like, a couple seconds is really how it goes.
Yeah, but I think a huge thing as well, at least for me, that made it easier is the sense of community and the friendliness of all the people who we were training with, where everybody was willing to teach you as you're rolling. They know that here you are, this new person, probably a bit annoying for them to roll with, to be honest.
I don't think so.
And no.
They say you can always learn. They say roll with any
true.
type of belt, and they've drilled that into us since we've begun. So, but it's nice that we do have those who do like to teach, because we can roll with somebody who's higher belt who will just do what they're doing, but most of the people that we roll with, they're like, hey, don't put your arm there, or hey, let's do that again. Let me show you what I just did on you, so you can learn. Like,
there's always a hand reaching out to pick you up.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's an important part for people who are considering where to start training, is to go in and to make sure that you feel a good vibe with the place.
Yeah.
To make sure that it seems like friendly people. As women participating in jiu-jitsu, I would recommend looking to see that there are other women.
Those Google images, guys. Search up the map.
Yeah, look up their social media, check all these things out.
It's a real thing, though, because it's definitely more intimidating if you're really the only girl. And luckily enough, girls are starting to migrate towards martial arts and other things like that, and becoming empowered in these situations. But it's still pretty frequent where you're going to go somewhere that's not having too many girls in it. So doing that little research bit, I know it definitely eased your anxiety when you went to a different gym, when you were back home, just kind of checking it out beforehand.
Yeah, well, I think it's just there is a risk of going to places where it is a very macho man meathead mentality. And which is great. If that's what you're going for, then go for it. For me, that was not the reason I was pursuing jiu-jitsu. I knew I wanted to do something out of my comfort zone. I wanted to feel empowered. I wanted to feel confident. And I think it was important for me to also be able to train alongside other women at that point. And still at this point, I think I prefer having other women to train with. I find that women fight differently.
Even our coaches say the same. They're like, the women classes, we asked one of our coaches, Carly, and she was like telling us about this women class that she had, and I was like, what's the vibe in there? She's like, oh, it's more fierce, and they can talk the entire time and still learn. Which we know. We know that's how it goes. But it's nice having it reassured. Yeah,
and I think also, generally speaking, it's harder to find men who are in our weight class when we roll. So all those things kind of factor into it. But I think a huge thing, just as a bit of advice for whoever is thinking about doing martial arts, is just go in knowing that it's going to be a bit tough. You're going to get a bit bruised. You're going to get a bit shaken up. It's going to push you outside of your comfort zone. But the rewards are more than worth it.
I think that's what makes it.
We leave every single class feeling like we're on top of the world, and giant adrenaline rushes, soaked in sweat, probably sporting a few new bruises. But I would say it's a pretty intense and wonderful sensation whenever we leave a class.
Yeah, I can't disagree in any way. So I know you're a little bit taller than me. Justine is a few inches taller than me. She's got longer legs, longer arms, so I'm a little bit more short and compact. So I want to ask you what you think is a move that you like that is benefited by your longer stature.
By my limbs?
By your limbs. Or what's one that you'd like to work on more?
Well, I think we've talked about this, that for a while I've been wanting to master the triangle choke.
Okay.
So this is a choke that's done with your legs.
Crazy.
And I do have long legs. I also run, so I have relatively strong legs.
She just did a 10K, by the way.
And I do yoga, so I'm a bit flexible as well. So I figured that this move is The submission would be one that I could use pretty effectively against opponents. So I'm working on it. I've gotten it a few times, but it's definitely something that I have to continue practicing. I don't really feel like I have ownership over a particular move, especially because I'm mostly on the defense. And I think that's a nice point as well. Sometimes we come into a sport and we want to immediately be good and to win. And even our coach, Mary Beth, who gives me and Karina a lot of attention in our classes.
Attention, we love it.
And she mentioned to us that her entire white belt, she's a brown belt now, but her entire time as a white belt, she just focused on defense.
Right.
And I feel like that's generally what my experience is in class, is I'm usually rolling with people who are bigger than me and or more advanced than me. Yeah. And so I'm generally just trying to not get submitted, and that's kind of what my focus has been, is learning how to be on defense.
Right, and I would definitely take advice from her. And going back to you saying that you do yoga, right, so you're a little bit flexible, I feel like this is something that can help ease, I guess, any particular female that's going to go into martial arts, is because I personally feel that the basic foundational sports that we're introduced to, let's say, I don't know, volleyball, gymnastics, cheerleading, those involve skills that translate very well into jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
Flexibility, endurance, even just getting out of spaces. Like, I feel like anybody who's been in a cheerleading position, in a dancing position.
Like agility.
Yeah. Things that we're kind of used to. It really helps kind of being like, okay, I am a little bit more flexible, so I can use that to my advantage. Because a lot of these other guys, if they're bigger, heavier, they probably rely on their strength and stuff, but they're probably not doing the splits.
Yeah, probably not.
Definitely not.
Yeah, but I think maybe we can end on this point, is I think that one of the most wonderful things about jiu-jitsu is that it celebrates really any body type that walks in the door.
Man, if that's not the truth.
So it's not a place where a certain aesthetic is desired. We have friends who we roll with who are way bigger than us, and they use that to their advantage.
Yeah.
And we also know people who are smaller than us, and they use that to their advantage.
The whole entire range.
Yeah, whether you're big, small, tall, short, all of these things end up being an advantage once you learn how to use it properly in the sport. And I think that's something that's super unique and super empowering about jiu-jitsu that I wish more people would know about. So
I feel like knowing that all bodies are accepted or whatever is just that easier one foot into the door.
Exactly.
And us as white belts, continuing our journey, it just makes it that much easier. And so I can only hope to see what's in store next.
Yeah, and we're still at that point of learning with my body type, what are my advantages, what are my weaknesses, and how to account for that. And I'm sure that's going to be a long journey, since we literally have no stripes yet.
Well, hopefully, whoever is listening, if you did enjoy, please let us know in any form. You can leave reviews. We're going to be on YouTube. We're definitely not stopping, so get used to us here.
Yeah, we're here to stay, even if to just talk to each other. But I think hopefully from this podcast that people will get a little bit of insight into what it's like to be a woman in jiu-jitsu, and what it's like to be a woman in general in our world these days, which isn't always something that is easy to navigate.
Whether on the mat or off the mat. We'll see you in our next episode.